I'm home, and despite my sister's interference, it seems that my winning streak remains intact, so...
I wouldn't pat yourself on the back just yet, Hatter.
By golly, I'll teach you to exclude me from a Harry Potter review! Expel a reviewist!
You and I are going to take over Books vs. Movies reviews.
Why?
Oh, come on. Everybody knows that Books vs. Movies reviews is all anybody watches on here.
Alright, count me in. Same here. Dibs on the book side.
Who invited you?
I did.
Well, you can't help. This has to be done in
Pairs, and there's nobody to be the second member of the book team. Hello, Pride. No. Not again. Where'd she send me to this time? Oh, this is just perfect. Let's see if I can get a hold of Matt. Matt? Matt!
I don't care what you do to me, I'm not reviewing Battlefield Earth!
Matt, it's me. It's Hatter.
Oh, right.
Looks like Cassie banished us both this time. Can you tell where you are?
No idea.
Great. I don't know where I am either. We've got to find our way back to the review.
How?
I don't know. I'm gonna call it up here and see. Oh, perfect.
What?
E.T. He's taken over Books vs. Movies reviews, along with Entropy, Segundus, and Jesse.
That doesn't make any sense. E.T. would never...
Never ally himself with Segundus. He hasn't liked Entropy since he went soft and became a compassionate supervillain, and Jesse... Well, why would Jesse want to take over my review? The power of Watchmen brings all sorts of disparate people together.
What? They're doing the Watchmen review without me?
We need to make our way back there.
I ask again, how?
We need to do a review of our own. If we start a review, we should be better able to stay in communication with each other. We might even be able to find our way back to the review site. Since we're both the same person, I figure if one of us finds our way back, the other will too.
What review should we do?
It needs to be something similar enough to the review that the evil crew is doing right now that we'll be able to piggyback our signal on top of theirs. Now, Watchmen's a pretty big deal. It's a classic work in its genre, and it had a pretty faithful movie adaptation with mixed reviews from critics. We need something with that similar dynamic, something that looks like an obvious win for books, but could be a win for movies if it's argued well enough. It should also be something that's been on the suggested list for a long time, so that no one will suspect that we'll actually do it. And it'd be nice if it was something that fit the theme of a rebel takeover.
I've got just the thing. It's perfect. It matches all the criteria.
How dramatically convenient. Do tell.
In the early 1940s,
Writer George Orwell was becoming increasingly discouraged and angry at what he saw going on in Soviet Russia. He saw the good ideals and intentions that the communist revolution was founded on becoming slowly corrupted by power-hungry dictators. So what did he do? Wrote a book about a farm that was taken over by the animals, of course. Like you do. Orwell's classic and critically acclaimed allegory, Animal Farm, is, on its surface, a simple fairy story. But if you have even a passing knowledge of the history of the region and the players in the game, the allegory is pretty obviously pointing its finger at Soviet Russia. There have been a couple of attempts to make this book into a movie. One was an animated film from the 1950s, which, quite frankly, was more obvious than the book, and that's certainly saying something. And the other was done more recently and more successfully in 1999, starring the vocal talent of Kelsey Grammer, Patrick Stewart, Ian Holm, and Pete Postlethwaite. Though it received mixed reviews from critics, this is actually a pretty good adaptation of this story, adding a bit of reality to the situation while still maintaining the allegorical nature of the original tale. But is it really better than the book? Well, let's take a look. This is Books vs. Movies review of George Orwell's Animal Farm. Matt, you see if you can get your bearings. I'm gonna start walking. We need to finish this review before E.T. and his crew finish theirs, and they've already started round one.
then so will we. Now, this book doesn't
Don't really have a main character that it can really be said the story revolves around, and the antagonist is, by design, ambiguous, so we're just gonna look at the different character groups, starting with the pigs. The whole animal revolution begins thanks to an idea from a pig called Old Major, who is reaching the end of his life and is weary of the oppression he has watched animals suffer under the tyranny of humans. When Old Major dies, two more pigs, Napoleon and Snowball, lead the revolution against Mr. Jones, the farmer, and take over the farm and adopt Old Major's ideals into the 7 commandments of animalism, the last of which is, all animals are equal. However, while Snowball's intentions are generally good and for the betterment of animals, Napoleon has different motivations, which eventually drive Snowball from the farm and elevate the pigs to a position of corrupting power. Altogether, there are 4 influential pigs. In addition to Old Major, Napoleon, and Snowball, you've also got Squealer, who kind of ends up being a mouthpiece and propaganda machine for Napoleon. The movie's pigs are voiced by 4 talented actors: Peter Ustinov for Old Major, Kelsey Grammer for Snowball, Patrick Stewart for Napoleon, and Ian Holm for Squealer. The voices lend a lot of weight to the characters. We can hear in their voices Old Major's desire for equality,
man is our enemy.
Snowball's desire for utopia,
It could save us so much labor that we may have to work only 3 days a week.
and Napoleon's desire for power.
As your leader, I will shoulder the burden of trade myself.
And I like how, for the most part at least, they do actually look like pigs. There are a lot of details to them, like the mud on their snouts and the little bristly hairs. And the house, in the end, does actually look like a group of muddy, dirty pigs live there. The problem with the movie pigs is that after a while, they're all kind of painted with the same brush. They're all power-hungry alcoholic slobs, with Old Major and Snowball being the only exceptions, and both of them gone and all but forgotten. In the book, there are a few other pigs, and actually a few pig dissenters who are executed, so it's not as though all the pigs are evil communists, just most of them. But one thing I do like about the movie pigs is that we actually get to see things from their perspective, particularly Napoleon's. The book left the action of the pigs very much a mystery, which was partly by design, as we'll discuss in later rounds. But in the movie, we actually get to see Napoleon's rise to power and his eventual corruption. And since this movie is about, at least partly, how these pigs overthrew their oppressors and then became just as oppressive as those that they overthrew, I appreciate that the movie at least shows us the details of how this came to pass. So for that reason, movie gets a point for the pigs. Matt, any luck? Still no idea where I am. I think I'm going around in circles.
Sure, I've been by this brick wall before.
Keep trying. I'm gonna get round 2 started. But what about the other animals on the farm? We see a lot of other animals. Obviously, the book is called Animal Farm, and a lot of them do overlap from book to movie. You've got Boxer, the horse, the strongest animal. Not too bright, but kind, likable, and utterly devoted to his work and Napoleon. Both book and movie do a good job of showing us this kind, innocent animal who did his best, but still fell for Napoleon's lies. In the movie, he's kind of the focal point, along with Jessie, the dog who narrates the story. In the book, Jessie is really only mentioned as the dog who gives birth to the puppies who eventually become Napoleon's guards, but she doesn't do much other than that. In the movie, she's basically our guide to everything that happens. She represents the audience's reaction to the events of the film, and eventually, she's the one who leads the animals away from Napoleon's tyrannical rule. But honestly, I'm not sure that this character really helps the story. I'll talk about this more in the final round, but Jessie in the movie really kind of takes away what made the book story so compelling. Other overlapping characters include Benjamin the donkey, a cynical curmudgeon who doesn't trust the pigs but doesn't really do anything to stop them either, Muriel the goat, and Clover the mare, all of whom have personalities that are a little better established in the book just because there's more time to take a closer look at these characters. Moses the raven is likewise better established. Though I do like the little bit of this character that we see in the movie, it kind of assumes that we already know who this character is and what he represents. Molly, the mare who loves the humans and who is eventually seduced away from Animal Farm by them, is pretty much dropped from the movie, at least as far as her storyline is concerned. The other animals are about comparable, at least as far as their personalities go, but I think what really decides it for me is the perspective of the animals. In the movie, we're told the story from Jessie's point of view, and it's a fairly mistrustful one, and so we know pretty much from the start what the pigs are up to. In the book, we're told the story from the point of view of all of the animals, and the wool was actually pulled over their eyes pretty early on. No pun intended. So we see more of the gradual process of the takeover and how the pigs slowly became more like the men who oppressed them. Not only is it a more compelling story, but it's also more reflective of how subjects generally fall under a tyrannical rule. So for that reason, the book animals are easily better. But it's not just animals that feature in our story, but also the humans who oppress and use them. During the course of the story, 3 human beings are prominently featured. First, you've got Jones, the original owner of Manor Farm before the animals take it over. Jones is a slob and a drunk, and it's indicated that he used to have a fine farm, but he's been letting it get worse and worse over the years. He also treats his animals poorly, whipping and berating them, and often even forgetting to feed them. The other 2 humans addressed by name are Mr. Pilkington, the wealthy owner of a large but not terribly well-kept farm, and Mr. Frederick, who owns a small but efficiently run farm. The book features one other human fairly prominently, a man by the name of Mr. Whymper, or possibly Whymper, but we're going to call him Whymper. Mr. Whymper acts as a liaison between the pigs and the humans when the pigs decide to start trading with Frederick and Pilkington. Now obviously these 3 farms are meant to represent 3 big world powers and their leaders at the time. Mr. Jones representing the royalty of Russia, Mr. Pilkington representing America, and Mr. Frederick representing the growing Nazi movement in Germany. And yes, I'm sure they made Mr. Frederick look like Hitler on purpose in the movie. But here's the thing, despite making him look like Adolf Hitler, they really don't do that much with his character. He mentions once about how efficiently his farm is run and how his animals never go hungry, but he seems a little bit too humane to be representing the Nazis.
The animals are starving, and it's not to your credit.
In the book, Frederick is deeply feared by the animals because they hear rumors about the oppression faced on his farm, which includes animals being thrown into furnaces. Plus, the movie only has Napoleon establishing relations with Pilkington and doing so directly, not through Mr. Whymper. Frederick never engages in trade with Animal Farm, and so the whole business of him eventually betraying them, as Hitler betrayed the Soviets when he tried to invade them in World War II, is completely dropped. But I think that I still like the humans in the movie more, and it's for the same reason that I like the pigs more. We get to see a part of the story from their point of view. And it's here where the relationships are really drawn between the nations. And even though Frederick's personality isn't really established, it's largely because there's more focus on America's relationship with Russia. I also like how, in addition to watching Napoleon become more man-like, we also see Pilkington becoming more pig-like. And I also like the inclusion of the wives in this movie, illustrating a kind of double standard that the US had with Russia, seducing them and yet disdaining them at the same time. We see this a little bit in the book with Molly's storyline, but it's kind of downplayed still. So by just a little bit, I find the personalities of the movie humans better. Matt, I think I'm starting to make some progress. Things are starting to look familiar. Well, great, because I'm nowhere. Where are you? I think I'm on Slippery Elm. What, the biking trail where I went during the Where the Wild Things Are review? Yeah. Note to self, apparently Slippery Elm equals wilderness. Then you can find your way back. Yeah, easily. Keep circling, you should get back about the same time that I do. They started the Imagery round, let's keep moving. Now this is not the easiest book to make a film out of, so let's see how it was really accomplished in Imagery. Alright, so let's get the big thing out of the way first. I said in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe review that I don't like it when animals' mouths move when they talk because I think it looks awkward and unnatural. And yeah, it still really does. But in this case, I don't mind as much because it's kind of supposed to look awkward and unnatural. These are animals behaving as humans. It's not supposed to look quite right. That being said though, it still looks pretty strange. And while it does make sense for it to look that way when the pigs are talking to the humans, it doesn't really make sense for it to look that way when the pigs are talking to each other. The whole language thing in general is actually kind of confusing in the movie. At first the humans can't understand the animals, but then all of a sudden they can? Why? It's never really fully explained. And for the first few minutes of the film, when you're still getting used to it, it's really distracting. Additionally, a lot of the CGI is pretty awkward as well. I don't really know if it was good for that time, but by today's standards, a lot of it looks pretty fake. Though again, that's not really the point of this story, and it is going to look pretty strange for a pig to be balancing on a ladder and painting a sign. And even though the effect side of the imagery isn't always up to scratch, the creativity behind the imagery is pretty good. They stick in a lot of great symbolic elements, which people like me notice, and which add a lot to the atmosphere of the movie. One thing they add is the propaganda film strips that the pigs show the other animals. I like the way that they use these film strips to give us the general atmosphere of the farm, and they have the added benefit of being very Orwellian, reminiscent of the propaganda shown in 1984, as well as actual propaganda of the time. I also really like what they do with the music, having various anthems that they play become the musical background themes. And I realize that the words of the songs are different from what Orwell wrote in the book, but it's the subject matter of these songs that's more important than the specific words. The big problem with the movie's imagery is that at times it's far too obvious and in your face. I mean, Okay, Orwell wasn't exactly subtle, but he did have a more gradual way of portraying Napoleon's slow corruption. A lot of this is due to the narration, which we'll discuss in the next round, but it really wasn't necessary as the visuals told the story just fine. And the ending of the movie is just way too in your face, while the ending of the book gives more of a feeling of despondency and hopelessness. The book also depicts the passage of time much better, which drives home the point that many of the animals can't even remember life before the rebellion. So, while the movie looks good and creates a good atmosphere, I still find the imagery of the book more compelling. Hatter, where are you? I'm almost there, Matt. I can see the apartment complex, just hang tight. Listen, Hatter, how are we gonna get the review back from ET anyway? I mean, it's not like he's just gonna give it back to us as we walk in the door, especially with 3 other reviewers on his side. You're right. We're gonna have to scare him a little bit. Hang on, let me get a hold of editing, Matt. Matt, it's me, Hatter.
Where the hell have you guys been?
Do you realize that ET is doing the Watchmen review? Long story. Listen, you're still editing that review, right? Of course, you think ET's gonna do it? Okay, listen. I need some sort of effect at the end. Something that I can make an entrance through that'll scare the living shit out of ET and knock the transmissions out at the same time. Think you can do that? I may need to forego correcting ET and Segundus's pronunciation of Ozymandias, but I think I can come up with something. Great. It needs to come after they declare the winner of the Watchmen review. They're starting the final round now. Sell it, EM. Hatter out. And finally, it all comes down to which version told the better allegorical story. By and large, this movie version is pretty faithful to the original book. It leaves out a few things and puts more emphasis on a couple of different areas, but for the most part, it's pretty close. The movie shows us the relationship between Pilkington and Animal Farm, or the US and the Soviets, in a very interesting way. We also get to see the eventual crumbling of Napoleon's reign, which reflects the actual crumbling of Stalin's reign that took place after this book was published. The movie also ends on a more hopeful note, like the animals who escape have learned their lesson and aren't going to let their newest owners make the same mistakes again. There's a sense that the new government, or new ownership, is going to be held responsible for its actions. The book's ending is much more empty. It ends with Napoleon still very much in power, with no indication that he's going anywhere anytime soon. Much like 1984, Orwell is trying to give us a cautionary tale, and so the only real hope in this story is the fact that it exists in the first place. But while I don't have a problem with giving the story a more hopeful ending, I don't think the movie does it terribly well. It just seems too rushed. There's not really time to take in the full scope of what happened. You also lose the sense of Napoleon's slow takeover and how each of the animals was completely taken in by it. One big advantage that the story of the movie has, however, is how it's put together. We see the takeover process, how Napoleon and Squealer took over Animal Farm and changed the commandments. We also see things from the human's point of view, and so we follow the continuing story of Jones and Pilkington. So, when it comes to the story itself, the two are about even. But the deciding factor, and one of the biggest differences between book and movie, is the way that the story is told. The movie uses Jesse, a minor character from the book, to act as protagonist and narrate the story. This causes 2 problems. First, we lose that sense that everyone was either completely taken in by Napoleon and Squealer's lies, or they were too afraid or complacent to do anything about it. By showing us Squealer changing the commandments and everything that the pigs were up to, we lose that sense of confusion that we get in the book as they try to reconcile their fading memories with what the pigs are telling them. Second, the narration just plain isn't necessary. The imagery was compelling enough that we really didn't need Jesse to tell us what was going on every step of the way. As a result, the point is just way too obvious. Both stories are illustrating how the pigs became just like the humans that they once fought against. The book, however, takes us there more gradually and more subtly, as though we too are being fooled by Napoleon's lies. With the movie, it's almost as if they were afraid the audience wasn't going to get it, and so they had Jesse reinforcing the point over and over again.
Totally believed in Napoleon.
They're behaving like men.
Squealer altered the commandments. Old Major's words no longer made any sense. I can't tell the difference between them.
Did you get it? Everybody did.
The movie had the chance to be every bit as compelling and interesting as the book, and if not for the narration, it might have actually won this review. With it, however, the movie told us more than it showed us, whereas the book did the opposite. So for that reason, I prefer the subtler approach of the book. Alrighty, Em, I'm in position.
Stand by. Segundus is circling for a landing. Okay, closing screen.
Do it now! Okay, Light rays. Threshold color. Bad TV for the transmission cutout. Sound effect. We have an effect. Repeat.
We have an effect. Go now, Hatter.
Get out. Did the Watchmen review for you. Yeah? Did you manage to get me a win for movies? No. Then you're utterly useless to me. Go away. It's gratitude for you. The whole damn Matt's gonna have your ass for doing the Watchmen review without him. Matt, I'm back. Everything's fine. You should be pretty close. Well, I'm not. I'm right back at the same brick wall I was at the start of this review. What? That doesn't make any... Matt, describe your surroundings exactly. Well, there's the brick wall behind me, and then there's kind of a partial beige fence in front of me, and I'm on this kind of concrete slab.
It kind of looks like a parking lot, an asphalt road, and a one-story brick apartment complex with green doors
And beige fences. And the cars driving by are really noisy and distracting, and they really don't make for great video making. And, oh God, someone's coming. Are you honestly telling me that you have been standing outside of the apartment the whole time? You know, I thought it looked familiar. Come on, we got work to do. What's going on now? Well, thanks to Cassie's antics, books and movies are once again tied. And the tiebreaker, as chosen by an overwhelming number of viewers, will be none other than J.M. Barrie's classic script-turned-novel for children, Peter Pan. So come on, we got our work cut out for us on this one. Hang on, Hatter. Do you notice something strange? I see that you're still standing against the wall when we've got a tiebreaker to get together. No, I mean, pan out for a second. What do you see? I see you standing against the wall and me standing next to you telling you to get a move on. Exactly, look. We're in the same frame. So? Hatter, we've done 26 of these reviews. We're never in the same frame. It worked. They've been separated into two entities. I understand. I know what to do.